Greetings, guys, gals, non-binary pals, and welcome back to another video. A few days ago, I was reminded of the existence of one of my favorite people on Twitter, the transformed wife, and she is still as active as ever. I don't know how she keeps having things to say, but she tweets multiple times a day, and it's honestly quite impressive. Like, it takes me an hour to scroll through like a week worth of tweets, and I don't know how she has kept this up for like years and years. Like, she's been going on these Twitter rants like since before I started this channel 4 years ago, and she just doesn't shut up. She never stops. She always has things to say, and I don't know how she keeps doing it. Mind you, I also have shit to say constantly. I upload 2 videos a week, so I guess I can't really say much. But it makes for a lot of conversation because she always says different things too. That's the impressive thing, is that she says a lot of things that like contradict herself, and she constantly comes up with just new stuff, which means new conversation, new things to laugh at and roll our eyes at. So today, together, we are going to be doing just that. Before we get into it, I would like to take a moment to say thank you to today's patron of the day, Jessica. I appreciate you greatly. Thank you so much for your support, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. If anyone else would like to become a patron, you go to patreon.com/savvycat or click the top link in the description. It starts at as little as £1 a month, and I appreciate it greatly. Let's get into some of the absolute mess that is the transformed wife's Twitter. There isn't one command from God in the Bible for women to leave their home for hours every day and work for a boss and a paycheck. There are commands for them to be helpers for their husbands, mother, their children, be keepers at home and guide the home. This is God's purpose for us. I don't think there's a command in the Bible to tell men to go out of the house every hour and work for a boss and a paycheck either. Like, can you point me in the direction of the Bible telling men to abide by capitalism and telling women to stay home? Like, I don't think you can find that in the Bible. I don't think when the Bible was written there were like bosses and paychecks. So this take doesn't really sit very well, does it? Because no, it doesn't tell women to do that, but it also doesn't tell men to, and yet you're encouraging it from men and not from women. So maybe take it back and try again. The best way for young women to make money who don't want to go to college is to become a nanny. It's good money and it's doing what they were created to do. They will be taking care of children, cooking and cleaning, so it's preparing them to be mothers and homemakers. Instead of investing their lives into a career, they will be investing their lives into children who they can have a tremendous impact upon. See, but then this is a funny take purely because you don't think nannies should exist either, right? And surely by being a nanny, you are encouraging the system to remain upheld. Because if there are no nannies, then women are forced to stay home and look after their kids, right? So it just seems contradictory to me that you're even encouraging being a nanny. I'm glad at least you're supporting some jobs and like the fact that kids need to be looked after regardless of their mother's working, but it just doesn't seem to align very well. And it's still so funny because like, does that extend out? If the job is like childcare and cooking and cleaning, does that mean that women are allowed to have jobs as teachers and as chefs and as like housekeepers? Are those jobs allowed as well? Are we able to stretch this really thin? Can we keep going out? Can we like move into other areas that are like surrounding those things? Because I feel like you can transform a lot of jobs into being about like caring about children. Like, you could have like, I could be an interior designer because like houses, babies are gonna live there one day. So I'm designing the interior of the house to make it safe and beautiful for one day a child to live in it and a family to live there. So I'm taking care of the home because I'm making it pretty. And that's another one of women's jobs, right? Looking after the house and making it pretty and nice to live in. So now I can be an interior designer. I can go be a contractor because I'm building things to keep children and families safe, you know? I could stretch this really far. And I just think it's so funny too, because like, without women in the workforce, there are going to be a lot of holes in the workforce. There's a lot of jobs that are going to need filling. We cannot function as a society in the way that we do now if we just removed all women. from the workforce. It just wouldn't work. The economy would not uphold. We have too fast of a turnover at this point. There's a reason why people like yourself get frustrated by the idea of the population decreasing. Is because we need a constant uptick of people to keep up with the level of consumerism that we currently have. And if women were to all leave the workforce, it would all kind of crumble down a little bit. We live in a very fragile system and we can't really change it that much very quickly. Imagine for a moment that you have strong sugar cravings and diabetes. You struggle to not think of sweet treats all day. Everywhere you go, people are walking around with chocolate cake, eating it right in front of you. Wouldn't it be helpful if people knew your life-threatening struggle and cared about you to not cause to suffer with this constant temptation? Well, we as women know men's temptation to lust after immodestly dressed women. If they go past temptation and lust, is it our sin? No, our sin is not caring if we are stumbling block for men and dressing like a harlot. But you kind of proved your own point here in the way that like people with diabetes and sugar cravings do walk around with those sugar cravings and watching people eat sweets and still not acting on it. Because you can have a temptation and a desire and then not act on it. And they do that every day. And people do that in all sorts of circumstances, not just when it comes to diabetes, but there's a lot of people who have a lot of desires that they are constantly surrounded about and have to put on the back burner every single day. And they do. So therefore, men, if they are like desiring someone who is immodestly dressed, they too can just deal with it and not focus on that desire, because acting on it would not be okay. And the difference as well is that women are people and we are capable of making our own decisions and we are not objects of desire. And if men are looking at us as objects of desire, that is something they need to work on, because they should really be viewing us as, I don't know, people and they're equals and not just the skin on our bodies. You know, like if you look at me and the thing you notice is what my body looks like and how that makes you feel and not who I am as a person and what I'm like talking about or engaging in, then that's on you, not on me. That's not my problem. If you are attracted to me, that's not my problem. That's your problem. You can deal with it. Like, it's not my fault. Yeah, people with diabetes don't expect people around them to stop eating sugar. They kind of just like anticipate people around them to be eating sugar and they deal with it and get over it. Like men can deal with and get over women dressing immodestly around them. Really bad comparison. When women try to convince you that the world would be a far better place if women ruled, no wars, violence, blah, 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 remind them that women have allowed the death of over 70 million babies, far and away more deaths than all wars in the US combined, and they initiate up to 80% of divorces. No, I don't want women to rule. Neither does God. As for my people, children are their oppressors, and women rule over them. O my people, they which lead thee cause thee to err, and destroy the way of thy paths, is 3:12. This is quite amusing for a number of reasons. In one, men are currently in charge while those abortions are happening, so technically they are still happening under their power. So it's still technically men allowing it to happen. Not that that's that even important part of it, but technically speaking, it is still men allowing that to happen. And I think that the death of the 37 million people who have died in wars since records started in 1800s are much more severe than abortions, because, you know, those people were born, they were alive out in the world and had the concept of life and knew they were alive and could feel pain and fear. And they also experienced the loss of losing loved ones and their homes, etc., etc. Whereas abortions, the fetus is unaware of its own existence, doesn't feel pain, has no consciousness or awareness of life at all. It's like ending a life before the life begins. It's like picking a flower. It's like that flower was alive when it was planted, and then you pick the flower and the flower is no longer alive, but like nothing happened. It didn't feel pain. It wasn't aware of its existence. Nothing changed in that moment. You don't feel guilty about mowing the lawn. You don't feel guilty about doing any of that. So like, I don't understand the comparison at all. I think that that's an opinion we should all hold, that abortions are much less harmful than war. So, yeah. When you worry about tomorrow, you are having vain imaginations of what might happen. God is not with you in those vain imaginations. He is with you now. He'll be with you no matter what tomorrow holds. He doesn't want you living in fear, but in faith. Stop watching the bad news. Instead, casting down imaginations and every high thing that excelleth itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought of obedience of Christ. Be anxious for nothing. This is so rich. Coming from the woman whose entire thing is telling people to change their entire lives because of the afterlife. Like, you spend your whole life living so that you can go to a better place when you die. There is nothing more focused on tomorrow than thinking about your death constantly. You are thinking about tomorrow always. Because if you weren't, you wouldn't have so many rules. You just turn off the news and ignore all the bad things happening in the world and focus on yourself, because that's easier to do. That's not focusing on tomorrow. That's you not having empathy and not caring what happens to people outside of your own bubble. Those are two very, very different things. You're here telling women every day to obey their husbands, to be submissive, because the consequences of that are going to hurt them, because they're going to go to hell otherwise, because they're disobeying God. That is you thinking about tomorrow constantly. You are anxious for what is going to happen to you if you don't follow these rules. If you didn't care, you would do whatever you want. You would do what makes you happy. You would act on desire. You would do things impulsively. You would like make decisions that made you happy rather than what you thought was going to reward you later on. It's the fact that she can't even see the hypocrisy that's astounding to me. Turn off the news and don't focus on it because God is with you. Is he with them? Like, in the places where bad things are happening, you know, there's a lot of like children dying, a lot of people in really terrible situations. Doesn't seem like God is with them. That doesn't really seem very fair, does it? Is turning it off because watching it reminds you that God has favorites, or God is an asshole for not helping other people? Like, what is it? God, that reminds me of a conversation I had one time with someone from my class at uni, being like, you know, we had a conversation about religion because he was Christian, and I was like, you know, I just don't understand God and the idea of God, because like, why is there so much suffering? You know, if there was a God, why do children die of cancer? And his response was just, because bad things have to happen and suffering has to happen to remind me that God is with me and that my life is good. And I was like, that is the most main character syndrome thing I've ever had in my life. Like, being like, I have to watch kids die of cancer so that I know God is real and isn't doing that to me. So I can be grateful for my life because I didn't. But they did though. Like, so what does that mean for them? Why is God picking favorites? How is that? How does that to you make God seem better? Because to me, that makes him seem terrible. Just like picking out people at random and being like, you get to suffer and you get to suffer and you get to suffer. So that person there knows that they're lucky because I didn't pick them to suffer. No, that is astounding to me, that makes you give faith rather than takes it away from you. Women complain about being abused by their husbands often. I never hear men complaining about being abused by their wives, but I know many husbands are deprived sexually on a consistent basis, nagged and manipulated often, and live with contentious wives that tear their homes down. Women cry abuse if their husbands aren't meeting their emotional needs or aren't being treated exactly how they want their husbands to treat them, or they're not happy, while fully minimizing and disregarding those women who are truly being abused. I love that she equated abuse to being denied sex and being nagged. Like, in what world do you go, women always complain about abuse, but like, I don't hear men complaining when their wives say no to sex. Well, I do. I do hear men complaining when their wives say no to sex. And I also don't think that counts as abuse. No, I don't think that doesn't. If a man was calling that abuse, that's absurd. That's ridiculous and the biggest red flag literally ever. Like, screaming red flag. It's just the fact that I know, like, she's talking about abuse being like, they're talking over women who are actually being abused. But like, she doesn't know what abuse is. And she doesn't care what abuse is. She thinks that emotional abuse is like a good and healthy thing. She thinks coercion is a good and healthy thing. She thinks being completely controlled and manipulated is a good and healthy thing. So when women are like, my emotional needs aren't being met and I am constantly being beaten down by my husband and it's making me miserable and like mentally unwell, she's like, how dare you? That's his job. Like, bam, that's abuse and you're enabling it and encouraging it. And that is the problem here. The way that she's equating like that to like nagging is ridiculous. Like, absolutely absurd. It's terrifying. Honestly, it's quite concerning because you know that like women go to her for advice for whatever reason, and the advice she gives is going to be incredibly dangerous and keeping women in bad marriages. People claim that having boundaries for children will cause them to rebel. Wrong. Boundaries show your children you love them. They're protection. God sure has a lot of boundaries for us for our protection. Just make sure you back them with scripture and your children know how much you love them. Boundaries are important. That is true. But some boundaries and some rules are unnecessary. And if you don't provide solid reason for the boundaries and rules to exist, they aren't going to obey. And a lot of the time, the scripture that you give them does not help your case because it's nonsensical to a lot of kids. And people claim that boundaries will cause kids to rebel. It does. It does. A lot of the time, it does. Because if boundaries are misunderstood or kids think that they're lame and they shouldn't exist, then they're not going to follow them. And if the repercussion for it is just like, because God said so, that's why you don't. Like, they don't care. They don't care. You need to have like solid reason and compassion around it, and you need to have actual conversations and not just like discipline and being like, well, God says so, you don't want to be a sinner because you'll go to hell, because that doesn't work. It works sometimes. Like, not every kid is gonna break boundaries, but like it's a hit or miss. Like, I have cousins, there's two of them, they were both raised in a like strict Christian home. One of them grew up to be like, you know, married with kids, Christian man, and the other was sneaking out of home, teen pregnancy. You know, like, it went both ways, and they're only 2 years apart, but they went to completely different sides based off of what these rules were and how they were enforced and like taught. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know how it's gonna go. You just need to have conversations and explain why the boundaries are important and not just use your faith against them, because it doesn't work most of the time. If you love gentle parenting and family bed, want no spanking and no sleep training, but your husband has the opposite opinion on all of those things, but you still force and manipulate them upon him, you're in rebellion to God. He's the one God put into authority. Submit to him, women. You know what I think? I think just throw the whole man away. That's what I think about that. If I had a kid and my husband came out and was like, I want to spank my children when they disobey, I'm not going to be like, no, we're not going to do that. I'm making the rules here. I'm immediately getting a divorce and filing for full custody, and he is not to have contact with my children. I'd hope that I would know that before we got to the place of having kids. That's something I think that you should discuss before having children. But like, if not, if I had kids with someone and one day they came out and said they wanted to spank our child, they're out the door in a second and they're never seeing my kids ever again. Just, that's the end of. Like, no, I'm not gonna submit and listen to that. I'm not gonna let my partner hit my kids. Are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? If your partner is like against gentle parenting and wants to discipline your kids through like aggression, throw them away. That's really the advice here. God put him into authority? Well, God fucking shouldn't have, because why is God encouraging my partner to hit my kids? No, thank you. No, never. Few women know what submission is, since few teach it. Some think the husband only gets to make the big decisions. Some think they only submit if they feel like it and agree. No, submission means to yield, resign, or surrender to the power, will, or authority of another. Even in the little things, women. If you disagree, even if you don't feel like it, this is God's will for you. Are you living your life just constantly doing things you don't like? Why are you putting yourself through that? Why would anyone want to do that? That's the thing, right? Like, you live your life being like, I submit to my husband entirely. That means he makes every single decision, even if I don't like it. That just sounds miserable and like not a life that I would strive for at all. Like, why is that a life you're living, let alone a life that you are encouraging? It just sounds miserable. Why would you put yourself through a life of suffering just because it's God's will? Hey, women, have your husband go into the public bathrooms with you from now on to protect you. So this is in response to trans women being able to use women's bathrooms, right? Which, by the way, trans women have always used women's bathrooms. It's not a new thing. People just like to make it a big deal now for some fucking reason, but most of the time, you're not going to even notice. But anyway, the solution you are providing here is to bring your cis het male husbands into the bathroom with you. To solve the issue of men in women's bathrooms, which is not what is happening, by the way, but from your words, men in women's bathrooms, the solution is more men in women's bathrooms? Logic. Just that you trust your husband. I don't trust your husband. I don't know your husband. Why is your husband in the bathroom right now? Like, what is going on? I don't feel comfortable in here now. You know, like, I don't have anything against like unisex bathrooms at all. Like, I don't think public bathrooms matter that much. It's like you go into a cubicle, you come out and you wash your hands. But if I went into the bathroom and there's like this like cis het man standing there like waiting for his wife, like looking around, then I'm uncomfortable and I'm like, why is there a man in this woman's restroom? What is he doing here? What's going on? This is just the most absurd take. And even as a joke, just absolutely absurd. You have to understand how absurd it is, right? Like, trans women are just trying to pee like the rest of us. Please don't bring your husbands into the bathroom. There's no need for you to do that. Stop overreacting. Please. Young men are becoming more conservative. Most likely it's because they can see what feminism has done to women. It stole their mothers from them in their childhood and made it impossible to find a gentle, loving woman who wants marriage, babies, and be home to care for their children and home. No, more men are becoming conservative because they see women as a threat. That's why. Because women are getting more opportunities and men don't like that. Because it seems as though when women get put on the same level as them, it feels like we're taking away from them, when in fact, it just means we're getting the same as them, you know? But like, since men are here and we're here, when we're up there, it makes them feel like they're down here. So instead of it feeling like this, they think it feels like this, you know? And they don't like that. They want to continue to be above women, and we're pushing against that, and they don't like that very much. They feel threatened by it. They want to carry on being in charge. They want to carry on holding the workplace and being the bosses and continuing to be misogynistic and get away with it. And the fact that we're challenging that, they don't like it very much. That's why more men are becoming conservative. They don't like that women are sticking up for themselves. They don't like that we are being assertive and asking for what we deserve. It's got nothing to do with wanting us to be keepers of the home. I mean, like, it does, because that means they continue to be in charge, but like, it's got nothing to do with feminine energy or whatever. It has everything to do with power. Many women regret having children. Why? They most likely weren't home enough to discipline and train them, or they were into gentle parenting that let the children rule the roost. Raising godly children requires full-time mothers who diligently discipline, train, and lovingly care for their children. There is no greater joy than having children who walk in truth. Where did you find the statistic that many women regret having children? I haven't really heard any mothers say they regret having children. I don't know any mothers who say they regret having children. Just me personally, especially not people who did gentle parenting. People who do gentle parenting seem to have like the best bonds with their kids out of everyone, because that's literally the point of gentle parenting. It's to create bonds and have trust and communication from a young age. So I don't think they're the ones complaining about regretting having kids. I think it's the ones who have really strict rules and their kids break those rules and they're like, why is my kid out of control? I think people who regret having kids are people who are bigoted and then their kids turn out to be queer and they're like, well, they disappointed me because they don't follow the beliefs that I have, you know? Gentle parenting, and they're not the people who are regretting having kids. I mean, that's not across the board, obviously. Like, anyone can regret having kids for any number of reasons, but I don't know very many. I can't name any people who I know who regret having kids. And like, I just find it, the hate she has for gentle parenting, I just find like, you know, the interesting thing here is talking about what like mothers who discipline, train, and teach their kids. Like she also said lovingly care for, but like training your kids sounds really weird to me. Like you discipline, train, teach. I think that like you lovingly care for them and then you like teach them how to be a person. You guide them, you know, you care for them and you guide them. You don't need to discipline and train them. That sounds like how you talk about like a dog. You discipline and train them. You guide your child. You help your child. You nurture your child. You set boundaries that are healthy and you offer up like communication and wanting to talk about things and understand why you have the boundaries and communicating when they don't understand why. You have conversations about it. They aren't in charge of the house, but they should be like in charge of themselves to a degree. You shouldn't control everything your child does because they're still a person and they should be able to make decisions for themselves. As long as the decisions aren't hurting them, your child should be able to like dictate what they do. That's not ruling the roost, you know? Like they have jobs around the house that they do, sure, because you teach them why that is important and you teach them to help and to value helping and to like want to help other people and be part of a community. But that's different to like training and disciplining. You know what I mean? Like they should make that decision for themselves. You know, there's a difference. Anyway, gentle parenting is great and much better than disciplining and training your kid. Anyway, she has some takes about families that are just terrible, really. Obviously, she's anti-gentle parenting and pro-spanking and doing everything your husband says. And I feel like that's all you really need to know. Anyway, I think I'm going to end this one here. I hope that you have enjoyed. If you have, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. A massive thank you to my Sprout and Above patrons whose names are up on the screen right now. I love and appreciate you greatly. And a huge, huge thank you to my Kiwi Cat patrons. Bobby, Josh, Mandy, Ikazel, Jessica, Eldo, Danielle, Raven, Elias, Chris, Samuel, and Knitting Menace. I love and appreciate you so, so much. Thank you so much for joining. If anyone else would like to become a patron, go to patreon.com/SavvyCat or click the top link in the description. For as little as £1 a month, you get my videos a day early, as well as podcasts a week early. And then for £3 and up, you get things such as outtakes, bonus mini podcasts, live streams, vlogs, and more. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, The Queer Kiwi, and Twitter, That Queer Kiwi. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe. Keep fighting. I love you. Mwah. When you close your eyes, you replace the darkness with light. You replace